Right guys, it is finally time for possibly one of my biggest videos yet. I'm finally doing it, the Garden Warfare 2 tier list. When I did my Garden Warfare 1 tier lists, a lot of people asked me to do the second game. I said no at the time because I hadn't unlocked enough characters yet, but now I've got all of them except for, like, 3. I said when I passed 5,000 subs I would make a tier list of Garden Warfare 2, so here we are. So this tier list is based on how good I think they are, not what my favourites are. I feel like I did that way too much in the Garden Warfare 1 tier list and it kind of ruined them a bit. Also, I've decided to combine plants and zombies in this one because I thought the separate idea didn't really work that well. So yeah, I've got 8 tiers this time, plus this one down here for Unranked. I've seen this as kind of like a trend on YouTube, Garden Warfare 2 tier lists. Yeah, this is characters that I don't really know much about, ones I never play or ones I just absolutely cannot come to a conclusion on. Tennis Star, I know he got nerfed heavily, but I've never really used him enough to see how good he is, really. He just seems to me like a regular also with less damage, but moves a bit faster. Twilight Jumper I got played recently, but I still really don't know how to play him that well. Unicorn I just don't have, and haven't really used him enough in mystery portals and stuff. Toxic just seems like fire and power, but I don't really know how he compares to those two. AC Perry, I know a lot of people think of one of the worst characters in the game. Once again, I've not really played him enough to either confirm or deny that. Yeah, quite a lot of roses here because I don't really play them much. And these 3 sunflowers here. Pharaoh and Mystic I never play well. Shadow is supposed to be like an upgrade over the regular one, but I always perform worse with her for some reason. I think she's quite inaccurate and she reloads quite slow, but I still really can't come to a decision on where to rank her. So that's the unranked here. So yes, I'm going from like top to bottom just because I feel most of the top tier is quite self-explanatory. I think first I'll explain ones that people think should be in top tier but I didn't put there. Necros I didn't put in top tier just because 1, I'm not really much of a Rose player, and 2, I'm not a fan of characters that can't really hold their own close range. I mean, with Necros you can Jinx and then use Enigma, which can do quite a lot, but I still think that and low health kind of holds her back from being the top spot. I do think she's definitely the best Rose though. Agent P, I know a few other people would put in top. Once again, I think health can be an issue sometimes. I don't really know why he even has 100 health. I think they did on Garden Warfare 1 just to nerf him because he's so powerful, but they should have just nerfed his damage output or something. If someone gets in your face, you might find it difficult to fend them off. I mean, sure, I've succeeded with that numerous times, but the fact he has lower health kind of like restricts him there. And I know there's a whole bunch of people that still think Chemist is top tier. Honestly, the fact he's point blank only immediately prevents him from getting in there. I mean, sure, I'll put Marine in top tier, and he's not that good at range, but he can still do damage at range. So, like, if there's someone on a rooftop, he still has a chance of fighting back. If there's a garlic drone as well, Chemist has no chance, so yeah. And I think while I'm at it, I'll explain ones that people might debate that I put in top tier. Super Commando I didn't think I would for a while because he's like nerfed compared to Garden Warfare 1. But as soon as I got all his upgrades, my mind definitely changed on that. Marine Biologist too, because I know he's kind of like a worse computer scientist, but computer scientist is legendary, so it's hard to get. I think Marine fires faster and has a slightly higher damage output when not in crunch mode. Obviously, I do think computer's still better because crunch mode and the fact he like takes half a second to reload, but I still think Marine is good enough to be top tier. And as for Iron, I only got him recently. Originally, I only had him in Disgusting because I thought he was kind of overrated, but honestly, that changed upon using him. So now let's have a look at the Disgusting tier. I think quite a few here need explaining. First of all, I've got these 2 All-Stars. Hockey Star, his damage output is stupidly good close range. He's actually not that bad at long range as well. Sure, his damage ain't high, but the fact he's firing so fast means you're going to get a few bullets in them at least. And I feel he's really good for like rushing objectives and turf. If you're struggling, spam all abilities, blast play the primary in there. I would say he is probably the best All-Star. Quicker Star is probably going to be debated quite a bit, but once again, I think he just like wins any one-on-one fight as long as they're not too far away from you. He might have trouble hitting moving targets at times, but the fact he does fire as well kind of helps. Now these 3 engineers, painful to put there because you can pretty much use them from any range. I even managed to kill a few people cross-map on the first part of Moonbase Z. His damage output is actually really good. He can kill a road with 2 primary hits and 1 splash. He's kind of like a sniper with splash, which is just stupid, honestly. Mechanic is there because he's basically just a soldier with engineer abilities, and he absolutely lasers people as long as you can like land enough hits. Sanitation Expert for while I had him great. I think this is probably the most underrated character in the whole game. He was quite good in Garden Warfare 1, but he got massively buffed on this game. He doesn't hit quite as much as the Painter, but he has toxic damage as well. I also think he hits 18 splash and then toxic as well. Jesus. I thought if I put Painter in, I should put Sanitation Expert in as well, because he hits almost as high. Mob Cop is also one I think is underrated. Yes, he is kind of a worse version of regular Corn, but when the regular Corn is that good, honestly, you can have a worse version of him. I think Mob's slightly better up close as well. Also, his penetration attribute is quite underrated, honestly. Sky Troop, I'm not sure how many people are going to agree with this. I put him there just because he absolutely lasers plants up close. My issues with him are he's not that good at long range and he runs out of ammo quite quickly, but once you get the upgrades, it massively helps him out. These 5 pea shoots are here. Already mentioned Agent P. Toxic's quite self-explanatory. Plasma, if you know how to use him, he's really good. Like, not only can he hit like 70 or probably even more, but you can just like keep spamming the trigger and abusing the splash. Fire P is like comparable to Toxic P. I think his direct damage is a little bit better. He just doesn't have as much splash and of course just fire damage, so yeah. And Commando P, I know a lot of people think this is one of the worst pea shooters, but once again it's kind of like a soldier with pea shooter abilities. He kind of struggles with imps, sometimes they're floating around all over the place, but he's good at pretty much everything else. He's quite a good anti-mech character as well. Fire is also another one that people might debate. Fire is also another one that people might debate, but honestly it's a fire sunflower. You can't really go wrong with that. She's kind of like barbecue corn before barbecue corn got nerfed. Now along the great tier, we start with these all-stars again. Goalie Star I was considering a tier higher, but his damage output ain't that great. He won't do a thing to you at range. But the reason why he's so good is because if you freeze someone, you can easily just sprint tackle or imp on them. But it is kind of like single purpose, I think. Rivalry Star is also another slept-on character. People don't like him because he's fire slow, and yes, he struggles moving targets, but if someone's fairly stationary, this guy can easily bat them. He's got Splash as well, so that's good crowd control. Splash, an automatic weapon, pretty hard to beat. One issue with him is that he does overheat quite quickly, and you can't really burst fire with him given how slow his rate of fire is. But other than that, I still think he's really good. He's actually not that bad at range either. Regular imp I didn't put quite as high as party because I think he actually gets less shots, when usually party counterparts are the ones that get less shots. And his mech's not quite as good, but he's still a really good character. His mech still has Missile Commander, so yeah. And here we go with these 2 chompers. This is not going to be a popular opinion at all.
Oh, no chompers anywhere near top tier.
Yeah, well, Chomper's the only class where I don't have any of them in either of the top 2 tiers, so happy now. In all seriousness, Fire Chomper is once again another character that's massively nerfed from Garden Warfare 1, but he is still like really good on this game, I think. Especially with Goop and Spike, where you can just breathe away, he'll melt them quite quickly. And if they do get away, you've got the fire to help you out. And also you can like abuse the trigger, so he does not overheat as quick. And Hot Rod as well. Obviously he has less health, but he's the fastest, and he gets speed boost after swallowing someone. And he bites really fast, so yeah. Not to mention he's got loads of upgrade setups you can use to like suit your playstyle. Archer Trooper I think is a little bit overrated. It's not that he's bad or anything, because he ain't bad. He can freeze really quickly, but his damage output ain't the best. He's not really good at long range. If you've got someone taking you out of range and you've not got a ZPG, you're probably going to lose the fight, because even if you can freeze them, he won't have the damage to finish them off. I think Gatling and Sunbeam on the other hand you can like take out, but only if they don't know you're there. If you can freeze them when they're shooting someone else, you've pretty much got a free kill. Camo Ranger was by far my least favourite soldier from Garden Warfare 1, but I think he's a lot more accurate on this game. He's really good for sniping, camping. Centurion isn't all that good. But he is kind of like a Camo Ranger with fire, so I think he's still great here. I don't think he's as good because he doesn't fire as fast, but honestly, his fire damage makes up for that. And as for Supremo, I know some people think this guy should go lower just because he's like a worse version of regular soldier, but once again, it's like Mob Cop with regular corn. Corn's so good, like Mob Cop's got to be good by default, so same for Supremo. And he does have some advantages over the soldier, like obviously the infinite ammo helps. I think he's a bit more accurate, and I think he actually has a bit more spread close up, so if someone gets in your face, you can deal with them a bit better. Obviously mobility is an issue. You can't bunny hop when fighting, but I think people who automatically say he's bad just because you can't bunny hop with him, that kind of just speaks measure of their skill, really. Air Guard's considering the tier below. 1, because she's not good at range, and 2, because if you like run out of ammo, you don't really have any other abilities you can like rely on, like you can with EP and Captain Cannon. But I think she's still really good. She's good for taking out close range characters, especially ones like Chemist and like most other scientists, really. Alien Flower I think is massively underrated. Maybe her damage isn't all that good, but the chip damage from the clouds actually really helps, and they buffed her quite heavily on this game. So the clouds do 4 instead of 3. It doesn't sound like much, but honestly it is. She is like a massive contender for my favourite plant in the game now. If you haven't like gotten into this character, you really should try her, honestly. And for Vampire Flower, some might think she should go tier higher. I think the health does hold her back, her damage output ain't great, and the healing is actually a really good gimmick, but it's not like you can just rely on that to instantly win a fight. Sharpeye is also another slept-on character. Some people think he's just a worse regular Deadbeard, but I think he's better. I think he shoots faster, his shotgun's probably the best out of any of them. It doesn't do much damage, but you can fire really quickly, and it only consumes 1 ammo, so I think you can get up to 12 shots with the ammo upgrade, actually. Electrician's like the ultimate anti-bombing character. Shut up. Electrician is kind of like the ultimate anti-bombing character, given he has splash and electrical damage. Commando Corn. For a while I had him in disgusting. I mean, he's legendary corn, so that can't speak for himself. Then I started to drop him a tier. I think he's kind of overshadowed by Party Corn. Party Corn's legendary mode is just so much better. Sure, Commando Corn gets more ammo. I don't think his damage actually increases though. And you can't get it with shared, so it's quite hard to build up anyway. I think I've only really managed to get it a handful of times. Also, the fact he's a Splash Corn sounds great, but his Splash ain't all that. He sounds pretty much like the plant counterpart of Rugby style, but his Splash is nowhere near as good, even if I probably would give him the edge overall, just for versatility. Torchwood should be like top 2 tiers, given that he's got 3 of the most disgusting abilities in the game, but he gets bundled so much, playing him is just a pain. Also, I don't think his primary is that good. And now we get into the good tier. Frozen Citron maybe should go a tier higher, but I think the fact that he has no splash and overheats quickly holds him back quite a bit. He used to be disgusting, but then they nerfed him and, you know, he's just now there. Scally would be better if his Yo-Ho-Ho mode was actually good. I mean, the fact that it heals you is quite useful. I've got into situations where the healing there actually saved my life and let me kill a few more people before I died. His mech's really good though, but I'm not really the biggest fan of his primary. Doc Toxic is the first scientist I got in this game, so I kind of treasure him in a way, but I think he's just a discount physicist. Doesn't really have enough ammo for his damage output. And sure, he's toxic, and sure, you can abuse that with energy warp, but that ain't enough to get him out of good. Zoologist and Lorpy is going to take some explaining, because I just see those as worse versions of the Chemist and Agent P. While they can kill quicker, the fact that they've run out of ammo quickly holds them back. And they don't even reload that fast, especially not Zoologist. With Zoologist, it's the fact that his spread is nowhere near as good as the Chemist as well. So while he can damage quicker, if you like miss a shot, which is easier to do given his lack of spread, then chances are you won't get the kill. Well, for Chemist, you can easily do that. And for Lorpy, that's also one that relies you to land shots. Also, you can't really, like, camp with him or use him at range like you can with Agent P. I know that he's a divisive character overall. Some people think he's really good, some people think he's crap. I still think he's good, but honestly, I'd just rather use Agent P most of the time. Tank Commander, a lot of people think should go higher, maybe. I think he's a lot better than Garden Warfare 1, because he's got more splash there, so he's a lot better for camping with. On this game, not so much. I think they did cut down his reload time overall, but honestly, I prefer the splash, just so I don't have to aim with him, really. Now it's time to talk about Mr. Park Ranger. This guy, I'd argue, is the worst soldier. He's still good. I mean, obviously, I'll put him in goods here. But I think he's a worse version of Alien Flower overall. Sure, he's automatic, but he runs out of ammo quickly, doesn't get an ammo upgrade, doesn't get a damage upgrade. The Cloud ones ain't bad, but honestly I prefer him if he had more ammo and maybe if he got a damage upgrade as well. Scuba is going to be a storm in a teacup. A lot of people consider this one of the best soldiers. I've never been a fan of playing as him. I think he's quite boring. And overall I do think he's worse than Tank Commander, because at least Tank Commander has a higher damage output up close, which is kind of like how I like to play them. Also, I've never really found his gimmick useful at all. And the fact he gets a sonar upgrade instead of something else that he could have easily gone and said. But he is still a good character overall. I just think he's not one of the best soldiers. Power Chomper is in this tier just because of how he actually has crowd controlling abilities, unlike pretty much every other Chomper. There are arguments for him even being better than Fire Chomper. I don't think it's quite there, but he is still quite good, since you can sneak under a group and then just like use your spray to kill a bunch of them. Bandit and Jade is one that people might think should go higher. Bandit I only put in good because her recoil's quite bad, and while she is kind of like the soldier of Cacti, you can't really use her as an assault character in the same way. The crosshair is really far out if you're not zooming in, unlike the soldier. Also, she could do with more ammo as well. The reason why I was considering her above is because her damage output is really good if you can land shots, like stupidly good. And Jade Cactus, a lot of people think is underrated. I definitely agree with that, but she does have her disadvantages as well. She's slower, her damage output ain't the best. But the reason why I do like her is because her kind of splash is quite unique and actually helps her out a lot, especially up close. Party Man, I was tempted to put a tier below the regular pirate just because he has less ammo, which doesn't sound all that bad, but that means he gets like a lot less in his shotgun. But at the end of the day, he is a pirate, he has party time, and the fact that you have a drone makes it quite easy to get party time, so yeah. Barbecue and Popcorn are like by far the worst corns in my opinion. Barbecue I still think is quite good despite all his nerfs. He's accurate, his damage output ain't the best, given that it's like 4 damage per hit. I think occasionally he can hit 5 crits. But he's still got all the good abilities, he still does fire damage. I still think he's very usable. And Popcorn up here because he kind of struggles up close, so if you don't have Huskop, then he can get killed up close quite easily. Also, I think his shots are quite inaccurate because they go off in random directions. But if you can hit the shots, then he hits really high damage, and he's a really good anti-mech character. And finally, Rhodey. I felt like putting him below a tier because I think his abilities don't really help his point-blank only playstyle. A lot of people compare him to Chemist, but Chemist has 2 warps and he can heal himself. This guy, not so much. He has a jackhammer, but once that's gone, he might struggle a bit. But I decided to keep him good just because he had the old trigger spam exploit. I think he gets 2 damage upgrades, and he also has a big bolt blaster, so if you are getting like Sniper Tower, he can like fight back. And up next is Decent. Yeah, this is where we start to go into the less good characters, I guess. E-Brains I put on here because I think his punches are quite awkward. I know he's got 5 combos instead of 3, but I'm not sure like all of them actually cause chain lightning damage. Also, his range attack is terrible. I mean, no super range is a great range attack in this day and age, but his is definitely not good. And Breakfast Brains I could say the same about. I think he's really fun to play as, and his melee attack is quite good. With the fact it can keep getting faster, and he gets a speed boost after killing someone, which is nice. But he struggles with crowd control, and his range attack is probably the worst out of all the SBs. That includes Cosmic, because the whole gimmick is that it works like his melee attack, it gets faster, but honestly, pretty much as soon as it hits peak speed, it overheats. Also, I think it's really inaccurate. Pylon and Shrimp are in here as well. Pylon I've never really liked burst fire characters in general. My favourite thing about him is his mech, and then I'd say that's one of the worst mechs. I decided I absolutely had to put Shrimp in here as well, because while I do really like his mech, outside that one pointless ability, but outside of his mech, he's just the worst version of the regular him. There's no reason to play him over the OG. Ice P's only decent because his splash ain't very good at all. He's my first plant I unlocked on the game, and I played him quite a bit then, but yeah, I've not really come back to him much since. What a camp freeze, you need to kill you with a bean bomb. That's very situational and quite hard to do. And wrestling style, I know a lot of people don't like this guy, and to be honest, he kind of is a Tesco rugby star. But I think he actually hits slightly more damage up close. Although he doesn't have a splash and really struggles with range, his projectiles are really slow. So I only kept him decent. And now we get into okay, yeah, this is where we start getting to some characters that I would kind of consider bad. Although a lot of them are in here just because they're overshadowed by some of their counterparts. There's a few stock variants in here, like Chomper and Cactus. I know the regular Cactus is supposed to have quite a good damage out, but honestly when Fire, Zen, and even dare I say Power exists, I don't think there's much reason to use her. Well, except unless you haven't got those yet. And others that fit this criteria are Flame Face, just because even with 5 his damage output is weaker than a lot of the other Deadbeards, and his shotgun is stupidly slow. Archaeologist is just the worst paleontologist. And as for Squawk, I put him in okay because I think he is quite fun to use, and while his close range attack is generally terrible, there are a couple of exploits you can use with it. Another thing you can do is like zoom in while shooting to hit them with a Ghoul Blaster up close to do a bit more damage. Although even with the ranged attack, his damage output is still not very good at all. Armor Chomper, okay. I know a lot of people think this guy is possibly even the worst plant of the game, but I do think his health helps. He actually has a pretty good damage output, like his bio's quite strong. The argument is, of course, that he's slow and will struggle to get to targets, and obviously that is true, so that's why I only put him in this tier, but I tend to use Burrow not to actually kill people since that moves slow as well. I just do that to sneak up people, then kill them with a bite. Also, quite good anti-imp mechanics now, which is always nice. And these 3 All-Stars is going to take a bit of explaining. Baseball Star used to be a better version of Hockey Star, but then they buffed Hockey Star to the moon and kept Baseball as he is, so he now just feels kind of pointless. He definitely ain't bad, I just don't think there's any reason to use him over Hockey Star. Motocross is over here because his damage output is pretty bad and his gimmick isn't as good as it sounds. Sure, the gimmick can stop plants from using their abilities, but Golden Star can freeze them, which can stop them from using their abilities and their primary weapon. The reason why I didn't put Motocross Star in the bottom 2 tiers is 1 because he still is Impunt and Sprint Tackle, and 2 because I think his weapon is actually really accurate and obviously it shoots fast, so you are going to hit some damage. But overall I do generally avoid this character. And Golf Star, I just don't really see the point. It's kind of like the Sniper of All-Stars, but who snipes with an All-Star? The answer is no one. A Sniper Painter works, a Sniper Corn works, a Sniper All-Star. Forget it. It can still deal some decent damage, it just feels like a worse version of Hockey Star again. And Toxic Citron is also another character that I would say is not as bad as everyone thinks, but he still struggles to kill people. He's kind of like the ultimate chip damage character, given he gets Toxic from Aura, regular shots, and he has these clouds as well. In fact, the clouds might be the reason why I kept him outside the bottom 2 tiers, just because, like I said, I really like Alien Flower. And now bottom 2 tiers. Yes, I put these 2 engineers here. Regular engineer I did put a tier lower than the other stock characters I thought were outclassed by others. Mostly because he's really inaccurate, his splash ain't that good, and his damage output is quite weak. Honestly, he's outclassed by most other engineers in the game. Plumber is also debated, just because he's kind of like an engineer with better splash. I just see him as the engineer for people who can't really aim that well.
Yeah, no, that's gonna get me some hate.
It was a lot better from Garden Warfare 1 because his damage was better. On this, I think he's just the worst version of Electrician. Disco Chomper, while he is technically better than the regular one, in fact, I will put him in okay actually, just because he is still better. Because at least he has a better bite, and I guess he has Disco Fever, which you only have to activate Disco Fever with 4 rather than 5. But the fact he has to swallow them is what holds him back. So as for these others in week, Chomp Thing was buffed quite a lot from the first game, but I still think it's quite crap, to be honest. 135 health is quite bad for Chomper, whose only gimmick is that he regenerates health really fast. But I don't see that as enough to outweigh his downsides. And yes, he's a spray Chomper, so you can trigger finger him, but with 135 health, he'll struggle to keep alive more. Metal Petal and Rock P. They are the worst armoured characters in my opinion because their damage output is a lot less than their regular counterparts. Sure, Metal Petal has 50 more health than the Sunflower, which helps quite a lot, but the average person will struggle to kill this character, and Rock P kind of like that as well. Yes, he's got Hyper, Beam Bomb and Gatling, but his disadvantages outweigh his advantages, that's what I'm saying. Slower, less damage than most other Pea shooters, and I think he's supposed to do more splash damage, but his splash area is really bad. And finally, bottom tier, here we go. Citron I think is quite self-explanatory. He used to be the best character, then became the worst. Cosmic Brains, I know some people still think is quite good, but the fact he can only do like 20 damage if you don't manage to charge your punch really holds him back, and his beam ain't good either. If you can get charge punch to someone, you can hit somewhat good damage, but it's only like 70. I do like his whole Shadow Realm gimmick, but that's if you actually manage to kill someone with a charge fish. With a charged fist, which ain't easy. And Yeti Chomper, a lot of people will argue he's one of the best ones just because he has range, but his damage output is terrible, his range act's hard to aim. Yes, you can freeze them, but honestly, they probably will have already killed you by the time you manage to do that. Also, as someone who actually plays Chompers quite frequently, I think the fact that he can't like bite someone to death when you're up close to them like restricts them. He can still swallow them, which is a little bit easier due to the fact he can freeze them, but never been a fan of this guy at all. And also Camo Cactus. This is also going to be quite the debate, I think, but I get that she can like 2 or 3 shot a lot of characters from range, but her recoil is terrible. She only gets 5 shots. She had the slowest reload in the whole game, and she can't do a thing if someone gets like even in mid-close range. Yeah, I know I'll put some characters quite high up that aren't good at long range, but are good at close range, but I would take a character exclusively close range over an exclusively long range character. Honestly, I think Camo Cactus has too many disadvantages to even go up 1 tier. Also, I put her at the bottom in my Garden Warfare 1 tier list, and she's actually a lot better on that game, I think. Pretty sure she did more damage there. Also, I see loads of people play Camo Cactus on that game, not much on here. Anyway, that is my video. Let me know your thoughts on this list. Try and keep it respectful. I know this is going to become one of my most disliked videos since my worst Plants Plant vs Zombies 1 list. But yep, I've been Golden Ninja Vlogspot. Thanks for the 5,000 subs.